Some gentleman just walks in and says, I'm coming to borrow money from your institutions and I'm going to build you a road, but I'll collect tolls for the next 25 years. That is an insult to the collective wisdom of the Zambian people, because that is something that we can do on our own. But the question still remains. Let's put that to a test.
What's up? My name is Ken Dumbo, the MC with the sauce. Don't forget to subscribe to J. Cool.
The honorable member from Porokoso, will alternate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to add my views on the reports on the floor of the House. Madam Speaker, I will start by joining others that have sent their wishes to Honorable Jeje Banda, our Honorable Member of Parliament, who is somewhere in Eastern Province under police custody. We wish him well. Madam Speaker, I'll start by agreeing with the move of the motion, where the committee made observations that there's a limited scope within which the fight against corruption is implemented. Madam Speaker, to properly fight corruption, we first must understand and be able to properly define what corruption is. In other jurisdictions, Madam Speaker, there is a broadened definition of corruption. Corruption, Madam Speaker, should not be understood to be a mere taking or giving of bribes, but it involves actions that put private interest over and above public interest. And this will be in relation to administration, policy, and legislation. So, Madam Speaker, with that broadened definition of corruption, we should be able to properly fight corruption. In other words, we can come up with a simple test. When there's a policy from government, put it to test. Was that particular policy in favor of private capital or public interest? And the answers are all there to see. The moment we are able to define a corruption, we will then be able to see the corruption in some of the policy decisions that governments take. For instance, Madam Speaker, there is a non-mining house that stole $2.5 billion from the CMIH, and the matter was before the police. Directors of that company were actually arrested. A minister comes up, withdraws the case, and the $2.5 billion is gone. In that particular case, Madam Speaker, if we're able to put that action to that test, we all should be able to see without any difficulty that there was something wrong. There are restriction orders currently on people's apartments, 3, 4, 5 flats, a truck, 2, 5 vehicles, restriction orders. They're appearing before the police. But these directors that took away the wealth of this country to the tune of $2.5 billion are out there enjoying the money. What motivated that individual, that minister, to make such a decision? Those are questions that we must ask. We are talking about recoveries, Madam Speaker. Recoveries of goods obtained corruptly. Why should we abandon $2.5 billion properly earned by one of our corporate bodies and chase after flats in Kabwata, in Ibex, and say we're fighting corruption? Madam Speaker, we have to define corruption for what it is. Once we put the definition of corruption in its proper context, we begin to see through a lens. If you look at road concessions, for instance, being given today, you'll be able to see and realize that indeed some of these decisions are not made in public interest, but private interest. How then can it be that with all the collective wisdom seated here, some gentleman just walks in and says, I'm coming to borrow money from your institutions and I'm going to build you a road, but I'll collect tolls for the next 25 years. That is an insult to the collective wisdom of the Zambian people, because that is something that we can do on our own. But the question still remains. Let's put that to a test. The decision at that particular point, was it made in public interest or private interest? Madam Speaker, A mining house owes Zambia Revenue Authority 1 billion kwacha, $1 billion. Right now, we're at the IMF looking for 1.3 billion. There's 1 billion owed to us. And the minority shareholder of that company now reveals to us to say that tax has been forgiven. They are only going to pay $23 million. What corruption are we fighting? The question that begs is that let's have a broadened definition of corruption. Corruption, Madam Speaker, is not the mere taking or giving of bribes, but it involves actions that put private interest over and above public interest. This is the real test that we have to put these decisions through. Madam Speaker, today, we have paper tigers coming in the name of Vietnamese investors to come and get 6 million hectares of land. The transaction.
The honorable member, I think that matter was brought out during matters of...
Well guided, Madam Speaker.
We didn't conclude on that, so let's not mislead the public because we don't know. There was an assignment that was given to the honorable member to raise the question on that. It wasn't concluded.
Madam Speaker, the law is very clear. The Constitution is very clear on the disposal of public assets. Yes. We have situations today where the executive can ignore and abandon the law and go and transact on a public asset. But today we must be on the floor debating on the fight against corruption. This parliament is there to provide oversight for and on behalf of the Zambian people, that if a particular asset that belongs to the Zambian people is about to be disposed of, it will come to the House of Representatives so that they have a voice. But today we have transactions being conducted outside and away from this house. And yet, somebody out there is going to stand up and talk about the fight against corruption. The biggest challenge, Madam Speaker, why they've been able to get away with that is that we have narrowed the definition of corruption. Yes. I want to call upon the House today to broaden the definition of corruption. Yes. We must look at the decisions that are made, the policies, administration, including legislation. The test to put is this particular law being enacted in the interest of the public or indeed private capital? Is this policy indeed in the interest of the private capital or indeed the public? Honorable members, you will be able to see that some of the problems that we are facing today are self-made. Because those that were charged with the responsibility to make the decisions for on behalf of the Zambian people made decisions in the interest of private capital at the expense of the public. And the moment we change our lens and put on a fair lens, remove the politics out of that, because it's about Zambia. It is about Zambia. Because if $2.5 billion goes and disappears, it's money taken away from Zambia. We should wake up with a begging bowl to go and look for 1.3, but we're losing 2.5 billion. 1 billion for ZRA is lost just because a single individual makes a decision and says, forgive them, let them pay $23 million. So you can imagine the work that the next government is going to have, Madam Speaker, to have to start recovering this money starting from 2.5 billion, 1 billion, the road concessions, the mines that were sold. It indeed will be a very huge task. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I wish to thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, J Cool, and turn on the notification bell, cause I'm gonna see you in the next video.